I need change. You know, with all the social distancing and self-isolation that's going on right now, some of the healthy routines that we've put together for ourselves to wake up in the morning and just getting through the day have been more susceptible to the mundane. So today, I'm going to show you a coffee beverage that I wouldn't make and wouldn't drink on a daily basis, and that's called Dalgona coffee. Now the thing is Dalgona isn't necessarily a coffee product or coffee beverage. It's actually a confection that comes to us from South Korea, and it consists of brown sugar, corn syrup, and also baking soda. And basically it's a semi-whipped confection candy that parents can easily make to treat their kids, or it's even something you might find from a street vendor in South Korea as well. Now, although this coffee drink isn't new, it's been recently popularized by an actor named Young Il-woo. During a visit to Macau, China, he had ordered a whipped coffee beverage, and what he was served was literally whipped coffee served sitting on top of a short glass of milk. And later on in January of 2020, when he was making an appearance on a popular television show called Stars, he made a comparison of the honeycomb profile that he had in the coffee to the honeycomb profile that this Dalgona confection has as well. And it instantly became a viral sensation on TikTok and was dubbed Dalgona coffee. Now, I'm choosing to share this with you today because it's very easy to make in the kitchen. You don't need any fancy coffee tools like an espresso machine. You don't even need a coffee maker, honestly. You just need a few simple things. So, let me show you. Now, most kitchens have all these materials. We're going to use a mixing bowl. I'm sure everybody has that. A tablespoon. I also have another small spoon handy for when we actually assemble the drink. Now, I also have an electric mixer. Now, you can mix this by hand, but it is going to take a very long time and take some of the fun out of it. And lastly, of course, we're going to need a glass to serve it in. Now, as far as ingredients, it only takes a few ingredients that most kitchens have. The first ingredient that we're going to be using is instant coffee. And we're also going to need some granulated sugar and some warmish water. Now, when we finish this coffee beverage, I also have some whole milk on standby as well. Now, to get this process started, we're going to start with some instant coffee, and I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of instant coffee. Now, you definitely want to use instant coffee. You see, normally coffee has about 90% water in it, and instant coffee has been heavily dried and slightly processed through a technique called agglomeration. And this basically leaves behind just coffee crystals with a high, it's very readily dissolved in water is what I mean, and thus instant coffee. You definitely don't want to use your normal coffee grounds because those coffee grounds haven't gone through that process, and they have a high content of fatty oils and some extra fibers that are really going to prohibit the whipping process. Now, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of water. Now, the thing about instant coffee is that because of the process that it's gone through, it doesn't have the same amount of organic compounds that non-processed, like fresh ground coffee has. And it also means, because of that, there's going to be less surfactants in the coffee as well. Now, a surfactant is something that basically takes away surface tension between liquids, or a liquid in a solid, or a liquid in a gas in our case. So basically the way that works is that surfactants essentially structure themselves with some type of polarity where it's leaving the hydrophilic parts of those compounds on the outside, and it's forcing the hydrophobic tails to be caught in the middle. Now, for our purposes, what that basically means is that it's going to whisk water away and allow a place for air to go. So technically, I could start whipping this instant coffee with the water that I have here and create a foam. However, if I do that, it's going to be a little bit disappointing. See, I'm going to be creating larger bubbles that's going to rise to the surface of the foam. They're going to easily merge together and soon break, causing the foam to flatten. And of course, that's a disappointment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, adding the sugar, it's going to dissolve in the water and create a simple syrup. And this simple syrup is going to increase the viscosity of the mixture here. And basically it's going to perform as a stabilizing agent. Now it's also going to create volume too, which is great for foam. But of course, we added more material into the mix, so there's going to be more volume. But the most important thing is it's going to make it difficult for those bubbles to merge together. So at this time, I'm going to actually start mixing this together. I'm going to whip it up and create that foam, and then we're going to put the drink together. All right. Now, what we have in the mixing bowl is, I'll show it to you. So it's actually lightened up quite a bit, and it's really kind of taken on that sort of meringue-like texture. It's nice and goopy and frothy and aerated and light, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Now, to put this beverage together, we're going to take our glass, and I'm going to put some ice in it. So we're going to get our ice in first. Boom, just like that. We're going to take some milk, and we're going to add the milk to the glass. There we go. Okay, and finally, the most exciting part of course, is that finishing move, where we take that whipped coffee and we start sort of dolloping it right on top of the milk there. Look at that. It is absolutely beautiful. Look how pretty that coffee drink looks. Very, very nice. Well, this is the finished product, and as you can see, we've created a foam that sits nicely on top of that drink there. Pretty nice, huh? Now, we're going to taste it in a minute, but before I do, I kind of want to pay homage and put a shout out to a couple of other whipped coffee drinks. Now, one of them comes from India, and I believe it's pronounced Penti Khoi, and it translates sort of loosely to hand-beaten or hand-mixed. And the way they make that coffee is they do the same type of process but they're just adding the ingredients right into the glass, instant coffee, sugar, water, whipping it, and then they're heating milk separately, pouring the milk on top of that beverage, and then mixing that so it's like a consistent mixture. The other very popular whipped coffee drink comes to us from Greece, and that's the frappe. Frappe is also started in the glass, but it's sort of built in the opposite way that this Dalgona coffee is made, because the whipped coffee is in first, then you add ice, then you top it off with milk, maybe a little bit more water, depending on your taste, and it's basically an upside-down version of this. So I suppose you could say that the Dalgona coffee, because of its strong nose and initial first taste with that coffee flavor, and then having that nice creamy milk slide underneath it and sort of balance out that acidity, you could maybe call this the macchiato of frappes. Let's taste it. That is sweet and light and delicious. And one last thing about that. Be careful with this drink because it's very strong. So if you're a lightweight coffee drinker, just know that we use probably about 6 times as much instant coffee as we normally would if we were making just a simple, like regular instant coffee. And we're using about 1/12 of the amount of water that we usually use. So it's very concentrated. Also, we added sugar. So this is definitely going to deliver a punch. I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers.